Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 666, recorded the weekend of February 13th. I'm your host, Patrick. This week's screenshot, Violet awaits her next disciple for the Snow Peaks climb in the 540th screenshot of the weeks. Thanks for sending in this week's screenshot. Nice little shot of the Snow Peaks climb, the new climb one. Which is kind of it's a pretty little winter space. So, a lot of fun. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website at DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network, and shows are usually available within a few days of recording. Next show should be next weekend. Hey, life's crazy, I keep saying that it should be next weekend, and then half the time it doesn't happen. But should be able to get one in next weekend. You can stay updated by following us on our social media pages or our website, DDOcast.com, with our calendar. On the podcast this week, we'll have on the back half of the show, part one of a discussion with my guild and friend Speedy. We're going to talk about debuffing. Is kind of the plan for this week. Probably be a two-parter. But that's kind of what we're looking at doing for the topic this week. What is debuffing and why you should look at doing it. And then we'll give you some tips on how to do it more effectively. Should be a lot of fun. For now, we'll get into some game news. First bit of news is Hardcore Season 5 is over. So thanks for taking part from SSG. And also congrats to those who are on leaderboards. You can view the actual leaderboards on the website, and then they're also going to be in game eventually, although there's not a timetable on that yet. But that is up there. And then also the after party is up and is going to go through March 1st. So if you have a character over there that you want to get transferred off, make sure you do that before March 1st. Do that kind of as quickly as you can get around to doing it. If you're one of those people who likes to roll stuff over there, I highly recommend that you, I don't know, February 20th or something like that, bring the character over and then just make a new character over there that you can just toss. So make sure you get as much of this stuff over as you can early, just in case, life happens and you don't get it in. You don't get your characters off in time, because that's really lame. So get your characters off earlier rather than later. Don't waste the last minute. Update 53 did have another preview on Lamania since our last show. It was pretty much the same stuff. Probably the biggest news, new change here. Couple things. We will be able to barter for Sands of the Nectar and Wilderness loot with antique bronze tokens. So it's just the stuff that's in the wilderness, which I will point out does include things like the Bloodstone and Ring of Spell Storing. So you can exchange those for antique bronze tokens. So that'll be really nice. Great reason to actually start collecting a collectible again. I love that. I know there's people out there that collect all the collectibles. I am not one of you. Sorry. I collect collectibles when they're in my face and stuff, but we'll definitely be collecting those a little bit more now. See, other stuff, hopefully, some of these may be duplicates from the last time we did a preview on this, just because I don't exactly remember which ones were in or out. They didn't do as great a job this time of what's the new stuff. Dripping with magma now triggers once every 1 second instead of every 1/4 of a second. So less often, but it should still be pretty good. Augments. Hey, let's talk about augments, specifically some of the new augments. Augments, there's a new NPC found in a variety of interesting places that will trade for several augments that had previously only been found in random loot. It's the same NPC in a bunch of different places. They include Saltmarsh, Feywild, Ravenloft, Sharn, Evening Star, and Wayloon. The augments will be on sale for plaque collectibles and ingredients and remnants and some combination thereof. High level idea here. Augments are going to be more easy to find, including the melee power damage one, like the newer ones. Healing amplification will be a lot easier to get, so that'll be great and fantastic. Really looking forward to that. So maybe don't buy the melee power augment for 2,000 shards on the shard exchange. Just wait till it's cheaper. Let's see. I think it kind of covers the main things. There's a spell should no longer block projectiles. Can't remember if that was in there before. My expectation there is symbols in particular will not block projectiles. I find that with symbol of stunning a lot. It's really kind of annoying. It tends to block missiles. Very not fun, but that should be going away. Bonus days through the week. Look, this is probably not. We're not going to record it with Speedy until Monday night. So by the time this gets out, since I'm doing this recorded, not live, it's probably already gone. But it was a 10% buddy boost through Monday, the 14th. So they had a little bit longer for Valentine's Day. Also, just a reminder, Snow Peaks Festival runs through the 20th. So probably by the time this show comes out, published next week, assuming we do one next week, it'll be over. So make sure you turn your stuff in, because this one is not like the Jesters Festival. When it turns off, they take the guy away to turn him in with. I don't know why you can't turn stuff in year-round for these events, but you can't. So that's kind of coming up, so be aware of that. Let's see. Sales. Improve your character. Get 20% off of select stat and skill tomes. Tomes of Heroic and Epic Learning and the Harper Agent Enhancement Tree through February 17th. You can also get a use the coupon code Lucky Snow for a free elixir of frosty luck. I'll take us to community news, the 456th Chronicle. Aldbar has your solo guide to the Heroic Abbot, so you can watch that video. Not an easy raid to solo. Look, it's doable. It's been done several times over the years, but it's really tricky because you have to run across things that you can't see without the partner to tell you where they are. For one, so that's a little tricky. You can donate your shinies on Orion for this year's Orion Rating Discord raffle. They're having one for that. You can check that out on the forums. Voodoo Spice tours the Salt Marsh Rares. He's got a video showing you where to find them all. Mystic Michael's favorite First Life character is a Spell Singer Bard. Check out their YouTube page for that. I am a fan of Spell Singer Bard, one of my favorite kinds of bards. Comment, what item benefit needs to be added to DDO? And I feel like this should be something that's kind of more from pen and paper, but I don't know what's left. Be like a wonder, Wonders item. We guess we have the Wonders figurines, because we have the Panther and the Hirelings, so that's kind of a thing. Curses. More curses. That would be fun. Someone's gonna hate me for that answer. I'm gonna say more curses. Can you tell I'm a DM? I do a lot of DMing. Curses is my answer. And not just like piddly ones that you ignore that we kind of have. I want some debilitating curses that you got to deal with. I don't know how that works with DDO and item loot and stuff. It's a little weird, but I kind of like it. Fan site news: Strimtom has a build guide for a Cold Sorcerer. Really popular build these days is Cold Sorcerers, so you got his version there. DDO Stream is your first stop to find DDO on Twitch. This week, DDO PL gets Dragonboard, and D&D Net on DDO Stream continues Rime of the Frost Maiden. Hey, we fought a dragon. That was kind of fun. And Brock and Friends suffers a winter storm. Also on Twitch, Deathy TV pushes for Heroic Cap, Spacious X quests Heroic Elite, and Codine 42 goes on a treasure hunt. On YouTube, the Damsel's Game runs The Cursed Crypt. Thazara of Orion succeeds in R3 Legendary Vision of Destruction, and Druid's Fire has your Snow Peaks Climb. I did try the Snow Peaks Climb. really didn't like it. um, I don't know, something about I I appreciate having some Mario skills in the game. I did not find a such a repetition. Like the only you're just jumping up a puzzle, right? It's just a Mario puzzle. Um, which a little bit of that is fine. It's a little too long, and it's just kind of aggravating when you fall. You just go backwards, and when you in the game don't agree with where you're landing, it just kind of adds to the aggravation. It's really just kind of less fun. So, not a huge fan of the climbing thing. Um, I feel very confident that even if I was really good at the climbing thing, I would get way more coins way faster doing the snow slide, the one that exists from last year. I would really like to see them do a snow slide that's a little more complicated, maybe some jumps or something like that. That's what I would like to see is a more interesting version of that. Let's see. Yeah, other stuff. D&D Night on DDO stream. Check us out Sundays. Some Sundays, I'm gonna say now at 7 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/DDO stream. For some D&D. There is no. I am not running a game in February, but I'll be back DMing in March, hopefully. But we still are doing Rhyme, and I believe Cherry is still doing his. If you'd like to play, and particularly if you'd like to DM, we do have plenty of open space to make that happen. So let us know. You'll also be seeing Descent into Avernus. The group that I was doing with my guild is going to be coming back to DDOCast in the next month or so, as well as a new one. We're going to do Tomb of Annihilation with some friends, folks that you mostly you'd be familiar with. A lot of them are on D&D night as well. We're doing that, so that'll be on DDOCast on Twitch and on YouTube as well. Coming in probably March as well. Should be a lot of fun. So a lot of new stuff happened there. DDOCast Splat will be taking a break, probably the end of March, for baseball season. Since I'm doing more D&D and umpiring, having more D&D groups going into umpire season, that's a great plan for me. But DDOCast Splat will kind of be on hiatus, April, May, probably most of June. So come back in July-ish is my expectation. Should be what's going on there. A little bit of lightning post this week. Zatsy Jeff wrote in regarding not having enough points for epic destinies. If you look at it like the enhancement trees in Heroic, we'll have more than enough points in the future. We know that level 40 will be coming someday. Yes, this is true. But I'm going to keep pointing out, today is not that day. And level 40 does not change how lower level stuff works. Like that, people keep bringing this up, but if you get more points at level 40, I don't get more points at level 20, which is still a point. So which means that 20 levels of points, same as Heroic. Okay, I'm gonna point out, just because there's actually nothing that says that the rate of which we get points has to stay the same between levels 30 and 40. Just saying. I kind of expect it will, but anyways, also we should be getting more epic destinies, epic past lives, which will also increase the number of points we have available. Yes, all of these things are true. And I understand that balancing the points we have versus the points we're going to have in the future is a tricky order. But again, like I don't think it's a points issue. I think it's just a moving vertically issue. And along the cores, to a lesser extent, because those are the things that I was sold on the versatility of the system, and it, if we're gonna lose Twists of Fate, which were very, very versatile, being able to spend points in a bunch of different trees really is what amplifies that versatility. And that's what I keep seeing from people is I miss having Twists of Fate because I could do these higher level things and put them in there, and I can't do that anymore. And, you can add more points or you can reduce the costs. So Does reducing the cost unbalance the future game? I mean, if you do it poorly, yeah, sure, but I don't think it's gonna. I mean, you can only get one tier 5 anyways, so I still don't think that's an issue of getting tier 5. Um, and I don't think if we reduce the cost by 5 points a step, like I don't think that's gonna break the game personally. But yes, Setsy does make a good point that if we get more epic pass lives, more destinies, that will increase the points. Totally true. First time I think someone's actually pointed that out to me. That although I should have known that. That's totally true. Although I will point out, 3 pass lives is 1 point, and a destiny is 1 point, so it's not gonna change. I don't feel like that's gonna change the calculus too much in that regard, but it's there. All right. Well, hey, thanks for listening to DDOCast. Stick around. We've got part 1 of our debuff discussion with Speedy coming up next. So that'll be a lot of fun. Thanks to all the folks who contribute to DDOCast. Thanks to Speedy for joining me on a little bit of short notice, but should be a lot of fun there. And thanks to San Diego Games, Wizards of the Coast, and the Cyber Ears for hosting the podcast. If you would like to support the show, you can visit our website at DDOcast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. If you have a DDO-themed webpage or you Twitch DDO and you'd like to be featured on our website, you can email us at ddocast@gmail.com. You can also hit us up at ddocast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, and other fun stuff, including various adventures in DDO, D&D tabletop, and maybe even some other games in the future. If you have a comment on this episode, a question that hears answer, or a topic you'd like to hear us discuss, or you just want to say hi, leave a comment or email us at ddocast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media and follow us latest cast updates at DDOcast on Twitter is the best place. So stay tuned for part 1 of our debuffing discussion. Hey, hello, welcome to our discussion on debuffing. I'm your host, Patrick. We have a new guest this week, friend from my guild, Speedy.
Hey, what's up, BJ?
Hey, Speedy, welcome. Glad you could join us today. We are going to talk about debuffing, which is, I think, an underutilized skill set in DDO. So I kind of wanted to highlight how it works and what it gives you and what benefit it brings you and your party. That's just kind of the general of where we're going. Before we kind of dive into that, Speedy, introduce yourself and give folks an idea of what you play in DDO, what you do in DDO, and your experience with it.
Well, obviously, my name is Speedy. Many people know of me or about me. For those that don't, I've been playing this game since release. It's coming up on 16 years now, PJ?
That sounds right.
Yeah, about 16 years. I made my way through many lives, racials, epics. Made myself completely maxed out builds. Uh, 200 plus Reaper points. Love Reaper content, love normal content, love the game. Many of our push raids, I thought it would be useful to make a debuff build because it will utilize players to not have to worry about switching weapons, causing either lag or DPS to go down, where they can maintain the DPS and actually exceed numbers that they would never even think would possible, um, but by me making it.
Yeah, those big numbers are always fun, right? Like, always,
Oh yeah,
always funny to see that big eye popping number. Like, wow, that was a shot. Those are always fun.
yeah. I've played every single class I could think of, all different mixes, bad, really good, It's more bad than really good. Mind that. And I've played around with multiple debuffers, figuring out which one works best in overall raids, which one will give you the highest single target damage, which would be helpful in raids like Lord of Blades, Master Artificer, Vision of Destruction, and then there's AoE kind of like buffs that will help out more like Dryad or killing time. There's so many different debuff builds that benefit um, in different ways.
Right. So let's just kind of define our terms here. What is debuffing, and why should players think about doing it?
So debuffing is lowering of a mob's stats, whether it's AC, fortification, melee power, PRR, MRR, or their saves in general. Um, what you want to accommodate for is swapping weapons. So the feat quick draw is super important to have while debuffing. Whether or not you're just on a two-handed, single, or wielding a greatsword for the strike through. What you can do is swap to a weapon that either has a certain effect, um, lowering whatever build you're building for EK, swapping to an ash weapon, which in the new update they're coming out with weapons that either give vulnerability to a certain element, or it actually will have ash or dust, which is super useful for new players and like regular players as well, because it's easier access than running how many shrouds, like
I don't know.
7, 8 shrouds to
It
craft one of
depends on
those
how
items.
generous your friends are at this point. Because there's a lot of folks
Oh yeah.
that don't really need a lot of materials, so it's easier to say, "All right, I need to make this weapon. Okay, cool. Let's go run a shot, and we'll give you all the stuff you need, and you're done in one shot." But
Yeah, that's like me and you. Just how many times have we ran shroud? Like countless amounts. Yeah, we're good. We're good. But yeah, those items there help immensely with builds. For like if you're running a melee, a switch to a dust weapon, even if you get like 1 or 2 swings in, swap back to your main, you're gonna see like if you're doing like 1,000 damage, just to say just 1,000 base damage, you swap to a dust weapon, get a few hits on, all of a sudden you're doing like 1,300, 1,500, and you're like, whoa, like where did this number come from? Well, that's the debuffing.
and the benefit of having a debuffer is that one person is handling and kind of focusing on that, which means that other people don't necessarily need to worry about switching weapons. They can stay with their primary weapon set or whatever. They don't have to kind of use less optimal attack chains or abilities chains or anything like that, whereas you're kind of handling most of it.
Yeah. So like perfect two-handed weapon or sorry, two weapon fighting situation, which is be pain and suffering. Granted, pain has fetters and suffering has the MRR, but the set bonus there is the two weapon die, which is more damage. So
Right.
that would help out people that two weapon fighting can actually just maintain that damage that they would end up losing from swapping up to something else.
And we should mention too, like this is not something that you have to have one person build for in your party, right? I know when you guys were doing some really hard push rating and like what we mean by that is, by the way, is like doing Dryad on like R10 or something like that, right? You're pushing towards doing those raids at the highest difficulty. There's a lot of coordination that goes into who's bringing which debuffs. It's not actually necessarily just one person, although we'll kind of focus more on that, especially later when we talk about kind of like building for it. But you can organize a party to really amplify how much you can do, because it doesn't matter how good of a build you do, you're not going to be able to bring everything to the table that's out there because there's a lot.
Yeah, so that's what's amazing about this is there's so many things like a lot of weapons that are coming out have fetters, which does vulnerability. So boom, once those max stacks you're doing 20% more damage. That's more damage. You get people who are paladins that do consecration. So every time they smite, everyone gets 10% more damage. That's more damage. You got war chanter bards that if they have top tier war chanter, they're at 6%. That's 6% more damage. You got people with auras that lower like saves, AC, fortification. You got monks knocking the sky, which is a beautiful debuff, which is amazing. It lowers the damage that they do in total. I forget how much it is,
It's the
but
mob.
it's
To be clear,
extreme.
it's the how much the mob is doing, how
Yeah,
much the boss
yeah,
is doing.
yeah. So it's like the melee power debuffs and the ranged power and spell power don't affect mobs as much as Knock the Sky does.
Mhm.
Knock the Sky is fantastic. Um, the melee power and ranged power like debuffs, they're okay. Like say if like a mob's hitting you for like 300 damage and you hit him with the debuff that minuses melee power by 20, you're only going to get hit for like 280, 275. So it's pretty much a very flat debuff compared to Knock the Sky, which is a percentage.
Right. Well, let's talk about something we've kind of touched on a little bit, but let's maybe dive into a little bit more about what are some things that you can debuff, and what are kind of why would you want to debuff those different things?
So let's talk about a raid like Lord of Blades,
Sure.
right?
Great raid, by the
So
way. Love that raid.
yeah, fantastic raid. So it's difficult, you know. You have to tank Lob while he has two mechanical dogs who grant him buffs that will make him take less damage, do more damage, and then there's the middle buff that spawns that will make him grab the buff and he gets more damage and less damage taken. So for debuffing wise, in my eyes, would be I'm okay. So once the dogs spawn, I want to focus on one dog, get it nice and debuffed, tell the party that dog's debuffed, which everyone can look on using the utilize button to see the debuffs that pop up, like what creature it is, the name of the creature, the UI panel, and then from there go to the other dog and start debuffing them. So even though Lord of Blades is active, my main targets are the two dogs to be debuffed because we're not going to get enough damage on Lord of Blades as if we just kept the dogs up alive longer. So you want to knock the dogs out first, then hop onto Lob, and then you can start debuffing Lob and getting full advantage of the debuffs and no longer worrying about the buffs that those two dogs give.
So, what kind of things are you looking to debuff the dogs in Lord of Blades, for example?
So it all takes up on party makeup. So if you notice there's an EK or like a caster, you want to focus more on like primary focus of using like an ash weapon, something that will lower the MRR of that mob to increase that damage output. But if you see there's a bunch of melees in the party, you want to focus more on the PRR aspect of it. In most cases, the builds correspond. Like for my build, I knock out Ash and Dust at the same time while working on MRR and Ooze and uh, Fetters, which is vulnerability. Um, for Lord of Blades itself, I would focus if I was to run that at high content, I'd run something like Falconry and a Monk. The Monk has Knock the Sky, and Falconry lowers his fortification. You can still swap in for PRR buffs or debuffs, like Jade Fist. Jade Fist is an excellent debuff tool for monks to use. I highly recommend using it every time you can. Every time that timer's done, just click on it because you'll see your numbers increase dramatically.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different kind of things you touched on. Let's dial in a little bit on AC. There's ways to debuff AC. Fort Sundering, right, does reduces that. It's kind of an easy get for that. But I, AC is probably not one of the higher things to be looking to get. I don't generally find players that are trying to hit things have too much issue with that. But you get higher content and maybe you're missing every 5 out of 20 times.
Yeah, so
That becomes
I'll,
significant.
all depends on like the mob itself.
Right.
Say Sulamades and Vision Destruction. Believe it or not, on higher content, he has crazy AC. So about like between damage numbers, your rolls, attack rolls of 1 to 5. Say you're missing, but you're rolling high, you're doing good. So the AC aspect of it, you got Sunder, improved Sunder. You have Destruction. The Destruction is actually pretty much at that point. Destruction is all you really need to lower his AC enough to where those 1 through 5 rolls start hitting.
Right.
Obviously, you're going to miss on a 1, but your 2 to 5, it's going to hit. So you don't have to really worry about that much. Fortification wise, all the mobs are pretty good. Destruction lowers the fortification as well, which is perfect. I love that combination. It's noticeable on like Lord of Blades. Lord of Blades has crazy amount of fortification. If you have someone using Destruction and Sunder, you're gonna have no problem whatsoever.
There's
Landing those
also
crits.
Assassin's Trick from Rogues. You mentioned the Falconry
Oh
tree has a
yeah,
50% reduction of fortification.
it's
Um,
amazing. AOE minus 50%.
mhm.
You can use this in any situation in dungeons too for like Reapers. You crack that open, you're critting Reapers. Like I
Right.
know in leveling or just end content Reapers, you crit Reapers that goes down faster.
Well, the fortification also, if I remember correctly, prevents sneak attacks a little bit too, right? Or is that there's a separate aspect to that? I can't remember now. I
So
should know
in the
this better.
old and so in the they changed it
Right.
to where deception and improved deception proc sneak attacks. Back in the day, fortification would prevent that. So if a monster had high fortification, um, you weren't able to sneak attack, even though he had deception active. Like. But with this change that they did, I'm pretty sure that they as soon as they are not aggroed on you, you're sneak attacking.
Right. That sounds right. It's one of those things that as soon as you start speaking, like talking about, it, I was like, wait, didn't they change that?
Oh, for
Um,
being for
yeah.
being here for so long,
Right.
you've
Yeah.
seen so many changes, and
Yeah.
whether they're good or bad, I'm just gonna play the game and have fun.
That's always my plan. So there's all you can also reduce melee power, range power, and spell power, which of course makes them hit less hard. And I think probably for the average player, this is going to be less of a concern.
Oh
Um,
yeah, 100%, 100%. If you see something that'll lower its melee power or range power, if unless you're going for like maxed out debuffs on what you want, I really want to focus on that. I would
right,
focus on either defense or what can I do to increase damage output for others and other sentient
yeah.
sentient filigrees or other items.
Conversely, though, like if you are trying to up the difficulty in say a raid, and man, that boss is just cleaning your tank's clock. Now's a really good time to start looking at the power debuffs, right?
Oh yeah. So for like Lord of Blades, um, this is what's so like I was saying at the beginning of this, there's gonna be two builds that reign supreme in my eyes that I both played, which is a monk debuffer and then the bard buffer debuffer. They're both super powerful, super great. You know, holds their own, and then provides those certain aspects. So, like the monk debuffer will have knock the sky, falconry. Uh, what else? Jade for more damage while still producing the average debuffs of PRR and MRR, AC fortification, and that melee power, range power, to make that boss hit way less. I'm talking about from man, this was before the fix. So like, so instead of him hitting for like, 10, 15K, he's now hitting for like 700K, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, there was back when it was kind of more of a focus of folks in our guild. There was definitely a difference of without Knock the Sky, it was one shot kills by the bosses. Whereas with Knock the Sky, it was survivable.
Yeah, and that's what's it's amazing.
Yeah. Let's talk about PR and MRR because this is one that gets kind of interesting. I will preface this, but I'm not 100% sure that PR and MRR works exactly the same as it does for players and monsters. But the funny thing about PR and MRR is the more you get, the less each plus does for you, right? Like there's a formula that it's, your 301st point is not giving you the same value as your 100th point in PRR and
So
MRR.
yeah, for us, it's rather hurtful. Like you
Right.
could have 600 PRR, but like the last like 200 PRR, you're only getting 1% extra
Mm-hmm.
or less damage. Versus like against mobs, you strip the PRR, you strip the MRR. Those stack onto each other that don't coordinate off a certain flat number. Like for us, if you have what was it 300 PRR, you're taking 75% less damage. But for them, if I was to strip that MRR PRR, that damage is now stacking on top, but not off of that flat number. So it'll be adversely effective.
Right. So if I understand what you're saying correctly, the way that I'm assuming it works for mobs is because it's if you get more, it's less effective. The more you take away, each point is more effective.
Yes.
So
So
if
the
you take
vulnerability is 20%,
right,
and then you have dust, which is 35%. That'll stack. That'll 55. You're doing 55% more damage. It's not
sure.
not was it like 20% of the 35% of the 10%. What we get.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I was kind of dialing on is if you take 10 PRR off of a monster, the 10th point you take off actually is a little bit more effective than the first point. So the
Yes.
more of this that you can, like, this is a place that it's really valuable to keep getting each point because each point that you can strip away is even more effective than the one before.
Yeah. So what I see, here's a classic, consume off a warlock tree. So I believe it's a middle. It's the Eldritch focus, which is or
It's
it
from Soul
well
Eater.
minus from
Yep.
Soul Eater. It will be -2 PRR, -2 MRR, -2 spell resistance, -2 saves. I'm like, okay, cool. So I see that stacking up, going from the first stack. So say you're doing like 100 flat damage. Like you see the first stack, you're doing like what 10, 104, 105. You see the second stack, you're doing like 112, 113. You see the third stack, and all of a sudden you're doing like 122, 123, and then the next stack you're doing like 130s, and you're like, okay. So it does work. It does
Right.
work, and it works well.
I think we've kind of. Was there any other types of debuffs that you want to mention before we kind of talk about like where you can go about adding some into your build?
So
I guess
buff your party.
we could mention run speed, attack speed. You can debuff some of those. Usually not on bosses, but
Oh,
it can
so
work on mobs.
yeah. So okay. Salt.
I
Let's
love
talk
salt.
about salt. Salt is fantastic. Oh my days! If you could get a salt weapon, get a salt weapon, and it will make any any difficulty so much easier. It lowers the speed, it lowers the attack speed. It's important. I'm not gonna lie. If you could find something that will lower attack speed significantly, it's noticeable on Doom Reapers and crazy like if you can slow down a Doom Reaper, you're in a happy place. A lot of the debuffs for attack speed don't really affect bosses.
Right.
I know Ranger. I forgot which enhancement tree it was, but Ranger has like a debuff for regular mobs that lower their speed, which is perfect because you can run around, shoot, and not have to worry about the mob ever catching you.
Salt
So,
is my favorite offhand for my alchemist build.
oh yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like, oh, you can't run to catch me. Here, have some more bottles in the face.
Yeah, and that's
It's great.
it's a common debuff. My favorite, like for any content. Salt's great. And then if you want like switch up between bottles, like one volley would be salt, apply the slow debuff, and then the next volley, switch to like an ash weapon, volley, and all of a sudden the next volley of the one that you did with salt is doing twice the amount of damage. Like, and the mobs are gonna die before they even get to you.
Mm-hmm. That's generally my goal. Kill mob before it reaches me to smack me in the face. So, okay, let's talk about some debuffing sources. So we've mentioned a bunch here. I think we kind of mentioned it in passing, but salts, dust, ash. These are all legendary shroud uh buff or kind of item parts.
Oh yeah, but
Um,
like us, but the new content that's coming
right.
out, they will have weapons that will provide that. So like if I was you, I would go get those weapons because you can't get if you can't get anything more free than this. Like,
Right.
oh my days. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great to have people that have that something they could switch to help situations like if you're like, oh, I don't see when you have the monster panel open and you're like looking through the debuffs, you don't see like dust. You're like, oh, I have that weapon. Let me click my 4 button that has that weapon set, and then I'm gonna you know beat Korkaza with this, and now she has dust, and then also switch back to your main weapon for a few seconds, and you're gonna be like, oh man, we were doing like 5,000 damage, now we're doing like 7,500. Like what? Like, oh well, look at her, she's already like going to the next island, and usually this takes us like a couple minutes. Now it's taking us less than a minute.
Right. What are some other ones that maybe we want to highlight that fly under a lot of people's radar that we haven't mentioned?
So there is in Shadow Dancer, there's a assassin. It's like a Shadow Lance, I believe, that applies a debuff. I don't know if it's MRR or PRR, but it reduces one of those stats, and it's a lingering 5-minute debuff, which it's the
That's a
longest
long
debuff
time.
I have I have this is pretty neat. So and it's I think it's like I don't know like a 12-15 second cooldown. So like you can use it on multiple mobs and have multiple mobs have this debuff. That's super useful. Uh, you got auras. Auras. There's a favorite soul tree that the aura of menace that will lower the fortifications, the saves, the AC, which is pretty useful for like dungeoning, but not so useful during raids because that aura is a hate magnet for some reason. But it works really well in dungeons because you get -2 saves. You got the Fade Arc. Their spray, or they have one enhancement point that is minus will saves, I believe, which is super useful. So like your spray is based on illusion DC, and it counts as an illusion spell. So if you're using illusion based class, you activate your spray. and then all those creatures have minus will saves. So you use your this is where it kind of gets cool. So you either use your holds, which are based off of will save, or you use your PK or your mass weird spell, which is a mass PK. So you're basically helping debuff those mobs, so it makes it easier for you to kill them.
There's a lot of kind of lower level spells that do similar things. Like hypnotism reduces saves even if they succeed. I think crushing despair does as
Yep,
well.
Crushing Despair is really good.
Uh,
Waves of Fatigue for movement. If you really want to work on like movement speed and like you really like it when mobs get slow, get like Waves of Fatigue, Exhaustion if you're a caster.
Mind fog is one. I don't see mind fog getting used too much, probably because it's an area effect spell and you gotta run into it. But
Uh, mhm.
it's decent. You want to hit some get some will saves down a little bit more.
Oh yeah, and then, you know what's amazing about this? All the spells we're mentioning can be applied with, green steel. So like, if the main thing that's kind of cool is the solid fog salt combo, which is amazing because number one, solid fog gives concealment for you and your party. It slows the movement speed of mobs on top of the salt procking on top of it. So instead of a mob moving, say at, I don't know, 75%. You add salt on top of that fog. All of a sudden now he's moving at 10% speed. And trust me, we can make it look like the like a devil in VOD look like he's running in slow motion.
It's kind of funny actually when you get the mobs moving real slow.
Yeah, super useful. Um, there's other debuffs scattered throughout the enhancement trees. You get like monk, I believe it's the henshin core, where you get like percentage to universal or exceptional bonus to attack and damage and universal spell power. That's useful. There's a bunch of buffs and debuffs scattered throughout the enhancements that
Yeah,
are very useful. I highly recommend getting them if you're going to play any kind of like end game build, whether unless you're going to focus on DPS. If you're following someone's build, follow someone's build. But if you're trying out something, I highly recommend like trying some of those stuff out. Explore the trees, and a lot of stuff that we say might say if you have like an extra like few action points in your build that you're playing, don't be shy to try getting some of those debuffs in because that will help immensely to the party and yourself.
yeah. We haven't mentioned the mark of the hunter from the new oh what's
Oh,
the
that's
Horizon Walker.
yeah. This is my favorite thing. It's a giant green arrow.
Yep,
So I play a debuffer right now, and I have that because I say look for the big green arrow,
attack that.
just attack that, and it's so funny to see everyone just swap to that because they know
Yep,
that's the mob. It's pretty cool. So it's super useful for ranged. So the first tier is -2 AC. I think the second tier is fortification. Third tier adds your favorite damage, and it scales up. It goes up. It's amazing tree. I love it for ranged. I tried it out on the first day, and I have no interest in ranged. I played so many of it leveling up, so
not a
I'm
very
sticking
fun
with what
build
I'm
to
doing.
level up personally.
It's
Range
awful.
range
That's probably
is
what killed it.
brutal. Yeah, it's great when you get up to level 30 and up there. I always
Oh
find
yeah,
it the first it has a much slower ramp up time for me than just about any other build. Uh,
Pop a hunter's end and enjoy the big number.
yeah. Let's see other one. Yeah, check out the trees. If there's points that you're spending in trees and you're I'm just spending points to get move vertically in a tree or because I need to spend it somewhere. Take a few minutes, look around, look at some spells, particularly lower level spells. Um, because by the time you've got your highest level, your level 6 or level 9 spells, depending on how far your book goes, you tend not to really use your level 1 and 2 spells other than buffing. But
Oh yeah.
but that's where the debuffs kind of tend to hang out a lot of times. So, pay attention to that. I know Alchemist has a bunch at level 2. Uh,
Oh, the melt armor,
mhm.
the
Corrode
caustic
weapons.
solvent. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
There's a bunch of debuffs in the alchemist tree. If you're like doing bosses and you just don't want to keep on hauling pots at them, well, I mean, obviously haul pots at them, but like burn your mana like crazy, like click off all your meta magics and just whale them with some debuffs. They're
right.
super cheap and they actually stack on top of everything else.
Yep,
That's even more damage.
a lot of fun. And then of course, I think everyone's new favorite is Time Stop. We should probably mention,
Ah, time stop. What
which
a
is
beautiful thing. What a beautiful thing. So, time stop. Helpless damage on anything. You talk about bosses, you want to talk about big damage numbers. I have never seen something so beautiful in my life. Um, if you have, like, say, in your group, a couple, like, granted, you have to go all the way through, was it
Magus of the
the
Eclipse.
Magister tree? Yeah, the new Magister tree. If you're going for something, I highly recommend getting Time Stop. It's beautiful. It helps out with bosses. It helps out with bosses so much. I've seen things get deleted in less than 10 seconds. Like before your damage boosts go away, this is done and done. So if you're running like a lot of it is was it wizards and druids rock out time stop a lot, and some sorks as well. If I could fit it, I've done a debuffer where I fitted it in there, and it worked out very well. But for my play style, I leaned more on Fate Singer, that capstone, which is 10% damage, 100% universal spell power, and I prefer that other than the helpless damage, but that's just me. But the time stop is is something to use like when you first initiate the fight. If you're doing like R10s, use it right away while everyone's fresh. Everyone has their buffs all the way up, and the debuffs are fresh, and you will see like that boss get destroyed. Or for raiding situations, you want to end the last push, or use it
Sometimes.
multiple times. Yeah, because
I
like a
will
lot of
say that I
times.
do see people not use it as much as they could. It's like you could, for example, you could use it at the very start of Lord of Blades, and by the
Oh
time you
yeah,
get to the end phase, the last part, it should be off timer.
yeah, yeah. You
Use
can use
again.
it twice in raids.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super. I'm talking about big numbers on top of the debuffs. I mean, I personally have been told like, oh my god, I just hit this. I hit Lord of Blades for like 300k, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh wow, in total, like yeah, just on a single arrow, 300k. I was like, my god, that's crazy.
Yeah, you get time stop working with tide turns. That's
I
magic.
I've seen something have, oh man, I want to say 4 lines of debuffs on top of the tide the turns. Uh, I think it was during Baba. Baba's one hell of a raid. Uh, Baba the Saga. I've seen her go like negative like 10 million
At
in
the
the
end.
first fight.
Oh, in the
In the
first fight, sure.
first fight
Yeah.
before she calls her hut back because of how many debuffs and someone time stopped. I mean, if
Yep.
if I was running Baba and I had time stop, I would use it every single time. Your group's ready.
Hmm.
You know, the first phase, the second phase, the third phase of her. Just time stop each of those, and it makes the raid so much easier and a lot more fun.
The third phase, I'd
Um,
probably wait until the mounds pop, depending on what
oh
you're doing
yeah,
with them.
of
But yeah.
course, of course.
Speedy, is there anything you want to plug before we head out?
Just thank you so much for having me, man.
Yeah.
This was great. I love talking about it. You guys can message me on the general the general Discord asking about debuff build. I'm more than happy to help anyone that's asking, or if somebody wants my build or wants the monk build or any kind of build, like, hey, don't be afraid to shoot me off a message. I'm more than happy to help.
Yeah. Hey, if you'd like to support DDOCast, you can visit our website at DDOCast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. You can also find show notes, past shows, and more on our website. You can also find us on social media and follow our latest cast updates at DDOCast is the best place on Twitter. If you'd like to join the discussion, leave a comment or email us at DDOCast@gmail.com. So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chests level appropriate. Have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.